this. Grateful and energized is totally how I'm feeling too. Really appreciate that and hope that everybody's voices will come into the room as we move through our session today. I am Liana Frick. I am on the steering committee of the Tool Library Alliance, one of the planning partners of this beautiful gathering. And I just wanted to take a moment to welcome you back, to reground in the fact that we are here building a community of care, and we're here building a movement. This is day 2 of hopefully a lifelong commitment that we all have to, if you're just starting or in the middle of it, we're just deepening your connection to repair, reuse, and sharing, and really living into the future that we all know that we need. I want to thank you for taking time today on your Friday, wherever you are in the world, to be with us. And I also want to encourage you, because I am a professional fundraiser and I know how important it is, to consider, if you're able, sharing or donating through the link to support our next summit. This has been going on for many years. It's been going on for many years with leadership from CAMI, from Repair Use Washington, and a lot of volunteers are in the room. And it has been going on without really much funding. And so we'd love to grow it. We'd love to make it stronger. We love having such a robust platform this year we haven't had in the past. So if you appreciate this and you want to kick a few dollars in, we have already raised a bit of funds, and that will all go towards the next amazing summit. Being said, what's the average donation and/or what's the overall goal? That is a really great question. I would say if you are, when in doubt, $25 is an excellent amount to donate. Or if you consider how much you might have paid for the kind of professional development, networking, resources that you're getting here. One of the things in our post-event survey is like, could you put a dollar amount on this so that we can go ask people to fund it, not you? And so start thinking about that now. How much is this worth to you? Is this worth a really nice dinner out? Is this worth a conference registration? But really, it all depends on what you have and what your capacity to give is. And in doubt, though, $25. If you have any questions today about anything technical, you can either reply to the Zoom invitation that would be in your inbox, or you can email info@southkingtools.org. We're hosting our Zoom. And as a reminder, everything will be recorded. And so take notes if you'd like, but if you already want to go back and revisit yesterday's sessions, they're there for you. And these will all be available on this platform going forward and on the YouTube channel. So just know, we'll be here for you. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to my colleague on the TLA steering committee, Josh, who's going to be facilitating our opening plenary today.
Thank you, Liana. How's it going, everybody? It is good to see everybody once again. And yeah, happy, energized by all this incredible sharing that's happening across the world. So yeah, I'm really excited about how we're kicking off today. We're going to be talking about shared spaces, reuse and repair under one roof. And we have 2 amazing speakers that I'll introduce in a moment. But first off, myself. My name is Josh Epstein, and I'm the Executive Director for Seattle ReConomy and on the steering committee for the National Tool Library Alliance. We run the Northeast Seattle and Shoreline Tool Libraries, which are hopefully becoming like the programs that you're going to be hearing about today. So these are kind of models that we are looking to, and hopefully there's things that you can gain from this as well. We are really seeing these efficiencies that are coming up because of shared programming happening in one location, where you can collect so much and redistribute so much and share knowledge all in one space and become kind of this nexus. What we're going to hear about is folks doing it in really tailored to their communities, which, as we know, all these things, the tool libraries and the repair cafes, they need to fit the community needs. And I think these 2 programs have really figured out how to do that for their areas. And I also think are continuing to figure it out. And this is, communities change and organizations change. So we're going to be hearing from Diane and Luke today, and they are, again, experts in it. And we're going to start with Luke. And if you have questions as this comes up, please feel free to put things in the chat. We'll do our best to get to all the questions. There will be time after each speaker for a question and answer, and then we'll kind of general more discussion towards the end if there's time. So I'm going to start with Luke Dixon, who leads the Eastside Rebuild, which is a reuse and repair and sharing hub in Kashmir, Washington. The program was founded in 2023 and serves the semi-rural community of North Central Washington. The program began with the tool library and reuse center store and has grown to support local needs where they pop up, including repair cafes, farm tool rentals, and storm recovery when disaster struck. He comes from a nonprofit administration background and has worked in reuse since 2020 and is often focused on fine-tuning operations for easy replication and adaptability. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to you, Luke.
Hello, everyone. Can you all hear me? Okay, yep, great. Okay. I am going to try to share my screen. Let's see how this goes. Okay. Do y'all see a slide? Okay, nice. Can you see me at all or just the slide?
We can see you too.
Great. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, thanks for that wonderful introduction. Yep, my name is Luke. I lead Eastside Rebuild. Kashmir, Washington is a town right in the center of Washington state. And so we're semi-rural is what I typically call it. We have 3,000 people in the town of Kashmir and then a nearby city of about 50,000 people roughly. So we operate four primary programs, the Building Material Reuse Center, a tool library, a monthly repair cafe, and some repair focused workshops, as well as we just introduced deconstruction and salvage services for buildings up to about 1,000 square feet. So this upper right picture was a garage that we did. It was our first project, actually. So Eastside Rebuild was founded in 2023 after receiving a Department of Commerce grant, the Industrial Symbiosis Grant, for $158,000. At the time, we were called a Reuse Innovation Center, and we, from the beginning, had the aim to house reuse, repair, and sharing all under one roof. So the operation started pretty scrappy, as most of us do. I was very lucky to bring one of my friends and colleagues, Beryl Bills, on as a co-founder and a manager to help build the program. And so at the beginning, we found a local gentleman who cares very deeply about building community and happened to own a large, empty, and dusty warehouse. And so he generously donated a free year of rent for us to give us some time to build out our program. We also partnered with Dave Bennick up in Bellingham, Reuse Consulting, to kind of work out some of the initial kinks of running a reuse operation. So the community came in some pretty incredible ways. This beginning, we hosted many volunteer days to get the physical infrastructure of the shop built out. We logged over 400 service hours in that initial build. And on Earth Day of 2024, we opened our doors for 3 days a week. So by then we had held dozens of donations events, offering pickups for large amounts of material and full garage clearouts. The community connections also played a pivotal role. We partnered with some local popular small businesses in town to get some eyes on our operation. So fast forward to 2025, we had 4 days of operation, over 1,000 tools in the library, and steady foot traffic and growth in sales. And we introduced deconstruction and salvage services that year. And so that really opened up new doors for revenue and additional waste diversion and additional material sourcing for the store. In 2025, we grew our capacity a little faster than the demand allowed. We had 2 full-time staff members, and we had to find ways to pretty aggressively cut our overhead. And so we made some changes and adjusted some hours and kind of found our stride. But that was one of our challenges in 2025. And since then, we've seen a lot of really good growth. And for the first time this year, we're anticipating to be primarily funded by material sales, tool library memberships, and deconstruction fees, with grants anticipating to support around 20% of the overall budget. So one curveball we experienced in December of 2025, Washington experienced some pretty intense storming. Leavenworth, in particular, which is a neighboring community, received about 10 inches of rain in just a few days, and then the next day experienced 70 plus mile per hour winds, which brought down hundreds of fully mature, healthy trees down on houses, property, cars. It was truly wild. There was trees down on every single block of the town. Um, and so I had listened to the Asheville Tool Library actually present and the Asheville Repair Cafe present on their disaster response, and that was really inspiring. I think it was at this conference. Um, and we jumped in where we could. So, given the connections we had built, we reached out to everyone we knew that wanted to help, and we ended up being able to mobilize quite a bit of volunteer service in just the next week. We got folks out with chainsaws and helped with sharpening when we could, and we ended up mobilizing 26 different volunteers with over 100 hours of service in just the 7 days following that. And so I think we helped maybe 14 or 15 different groups of people, different homes that had houses down. And amazingly, the American Red Cross actually reached out to us for volunteers, and we were able to get a few of them for them just the next day. So that was a great opportunity, and I think a real example of where reuse centers and tool sharing centers can really step in and help when disaster strikes. So going into 2026, we have just one full-time staff member, that's me. And then we have one part-time store helper and a few on-call staff for deconstruction. So a few takeaways from what we've learned. So all of our programs are reciprocal, and some help pay for others. When people donate, they naturally bring tools and materials in the same trip. We put the nicest, newest, and most unique tools in the library, and we sell the rest. Tools break, and we use our hold on, I messed up my slides. There we go. Tools break, and we use our repair cafe space and our volunteers to help fix them. When borrowers return tools, it brings the most foot traffic to the store and vice versa. None of these programs work as well alone as they do together, and that's really the whole point. Each program also has a different financial role, and so some are maximized to keep costs as low as possible, while others are meant to generate really meaningful revenue. Repair cafes and workshops are free and low cost if needed. And the tool library operates at a loss, and it likely will for several more years. We try to keep that as affordable as possible. To jump to the other end of the spectrum, deconstruction service is mostly for folks that can afford to pay more for a more ethical approach to demolition. And these are billed like any other demolition contractor would, with the intent to generate margin that supports the rest of the operation. The store fills whatever gap it needs to, and so kept as affordable as possible. We try and strike the right balance between making materials as affordable as possible and, of course, keeping the lights on. So something else that I think was really pivotal for our success so far is getting the word out as soon as possible. There is really no substitute for word of mouth, and this just takes a lot of time. So we opened our doors long before anything was polished, and we kept refining as people slowly discovered us. As an occasional perfectionist, this was pretty hard for me. I knew what I wanted things to look like, but at the end of the day, people were much more excited about the mission and what we were doing than having things be truly organized. Another hard truth that we've had to learn is, our goal is to divert as much as possible. Sometimes that means making really hard calls about what can't be saved. And so, we see keeping material moving through and sometimes saying no to material as us being able to continue to deliver this mission of diverting tons and tons of material per year. Um, Another thing I think is worth mentioning, I have no trades background going into this. And so the qualification for starting something like this really is just willing to jump in. You don't have to feel fully ready. So going into 2026, we're finding new ways to respond to the specific needs of our community. We're introducing farm and food production tools for our small local growers. We're partnering with other nonprofits for Maker Day fairs, sewing events, and their building improvements. We're continuing to take on deconstruction and salvage projects as time and resources allow. And we're very excited to see what the future holds. So if any of this resonates with you or what you're trying to build, or if you're on the precipice of starting something, maybe growing an additional program, I'd love to connect. Thank you so much and open to any questions.
All right. Thank you, Luke. What an amazing program. That is so cool. Again, feel free to add questions to the chat as they come up. We've got a couple, so Steve put in a couple, so I'm going to ask those to you, Luke. So first off, does your organization own a vehicle?
We do, and we found pretty early on that that was going to be critical for the reuse store in particular. Um, People do bring a lot of donations to the store, but by far the biggest and most quality donations are things that we go and pick up. So we put a call out. Hey, does anyone have a box truck or anything like that? Pretty early on, and we had a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend that gave us a pretty good deal on a box truck. And so we have a 16-foot box truck that, has probably 300,000 miles on it, but it does what it needs to do. So yeah, we do.
And do you have a limit of like, you'll only go out for a certain value of stuff, or if somebody calls, you go?
Yep. We certainly do. And I actually have made a little calculator for myself I put in the distance, labor hours, fuel, all of that. I would say the simplified version is that if it's truly in town, if it's within like a 10-minute drive, it needs to be worth at least around $200. If it's a little bit further, we have a lot of calls for about 40 minutes away in the Lake Wenatchee area. It needs to be worth about $500 for what we would sell it as. So I do have to say no to quite a few trips as well. In addition to the vehicles, we do have a forklift, which I think is also really, really helpful. Similar thing, very old, very rickety, but it does the job, and we got it for a reasonable price.
Yeah, nice. Steve also asks, do you send volunteers on deconstruction projects? And along with that, who can actually drive the truck? Are people named, or is there like just named staff or volunteers? How does that work? And I'm assuming that's partly an insurance question.
It is, yeah. So technically, I'm the only one that's allowed to drive the truck, which is kind of a pinch point. If we're just kind of dabbling in the deconstruction crew, this is our third iteration. So all of our deconstruction staff are paid and paid at what I would consider a pretty competitive rate for general construction labor in the area. And the beauty is that money, these are ad hoc employees, so they only work if we have a job, and we only have a few jobs a year. And so that money comes directly out of the price that the client is paying. We have had volunteers volunteer to deconstruct, and I think that you kind of have to work with your local. We have L&I, which is our labor and industries, and you can get workers' compensation for volunteers, which I think I would want. I think we have that for our volunteers that are on site because it's definitely higher risk work. So at the end of the day, we're charging a good amount for these projects. The one we just completed a garage and we charged around $9,000 for that. So at the end of the day, I wanted to be able to assign staff to come in and be there for 8 hours a day, and volunteers just work a little bit different in that world. And so I think a balance is great. with volunteers and staff, but I think that paid staff helps get projects done a little bit faster. But volunteers also are incredible in this world, and so yeah.
Great. Another question is, are you doing any education for various construction or deconstruction skills? And do schools participate in any way?
We have not yet. We partnered with Dave Bennick, who runs the Building Deconstruction Institute. He teaches deconstruction classes out of Bellingham. We actually hosted an introduction to deconstruction that was also my introduction to deconstruction a couple years ago. I think that if someone was interested in learning about deconstruction, we would be happy to talk to them about it. And we do have owners of buildings that want to learn about deconstruction while we're deconstructing, and that can be a pretty tricky balance. That's a complicated insurance question. But I have worked with owners before when they've been like, can you teach me how to take out these windows and doors? And we've done that with owners before. So we don't have any direct programming around that, but I think
Do
we're
you
always open
around
to it.
construction?
Not yet. So our work. So we actually are right next door to a woodworking shop, and I know a lot of spaces have sort of maker space as well. And I think that's something that we would have if we weren't right next to one. And I think it's something that we collaborate with this wood shop constantly, which is a
Hmm.
really awesome thing. Um, they are actually getting into doing some like introduction to drywall and introduction to framing. And so we're collaborating with them, providing some materials and tools for those classes.
Yeah.
And so I think between us and them, we're the goal is to fill those gaps for sure.
Yeah. And another question that kind of leads into is, do you partner with other construction companies or real estate?
Yes. So um, I would say from the building material reuse world, we um, some of the highest value donations come from contractors. Basically, all of the highest donation values come from contractors. These are typically remodel contractors. And so that has taken us quite some time to get in the ear of contractors. Most construction folks tend to be very busy all the time, and they have their system and they don't particularly want to change it. And so it's taken a little bit of time for us to encourage that pattern change of like, hey, call us first, and we'll come pick up your stuff for free.
Yeah.
And so but that is something that we value very highly, is those relationships with remodel contractors in particular.
Yeah. I know it is a common concern of like, well, this does end up costing more sometimes. It can be more time intensive. And so people got to believe in it. But are there other ways that you've been able to sell it in a way besides just the morality of it?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think in my mind, and I've been experimenting a lot with this year as well, is just making that process as convenient as possible and as fast as possible.
Yeah.
So I just set up another like a Google Voice number that is doesn't go to the store. It goes to my phone, and it's the number I give out to contractors. And work-life balance is very important, but I do my best to try and really answer, like I'll just say like, hey, just text me pictures and I'll let you know like pretty immediately if we can take those items or not. So that's one friction that I just kind of tried to uh, bring down. And then yeah, I think just being really honest with the contractors if it's stuff that we won't take, because what's the worst case is if we say we're going to take it and we get there and then we don't, and they planned on us taking it, they will probably never use us again. So making sure that we're really upfront with the contractors and take stuff that we say that we're going to take is important.
Yeah. Great. Um, there's some other great questions here, and we're going down a bit of a deconstruction hole, which is good, but I want to bring
Sure.
us back a little bit
Yeah.
to and so don't worry if you put questions there, we're going to try to get to them. If they're deconstruction specific, we might hang on. Um, but I want to have one more question, then we're going to move on to Diane. But Amanda asks a good question of how do you feel like the local socioeconomic factors, cost of living, social structures are a factor in your overall model with all these multiple organization projects going on?
I think that's a great question. I think that, every reuse center is in a different type of market. The area that we're in is very expensive to live. It's one of the most expensive in the country, especially for a relatively rural area. I think it's often comparable to urban areas. And so I think people are generally making like more middle class rather than upper class wages. And so we have a very strong DIY ethic. There's, in particular, all these canyons, and people live up, way up in all of these canyons. And I think so many of those people are working on their own homes. And I would say, 90% of the people that use our services, probably more, are homeowners. Sometimes people are thinking that contractors might be the ones buying materials. Occasionally they are, but much more often than not, it's homeowners that are really trying to save money, or that can't afford to hire someone or pay new. And so, I think that goes into we're charging as little as possible for our materials while still trying to keep the doors open. Hopefully that answers that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could talk all day long just about that one. It's a deep question. So thank you, Luke. We might come back around to you at the end, but I want
Thanks,
to
everyone.
move on for a moment. And I'm sure Luke is open to
Oh,
other questions as we go. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, I
Yeah.
think I stopped
And
sharing my screen. There we go.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's it. So, right now we're going to pivot a little bit, and I'm going to introduce the wonderful Diane Cohen, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Finger Lakes Reuse Incorporated. This is an award-winning nonprofit social enterprise operating in two community reuse centers in Ithaca, New York, incorporated in 2007 to help transform the costs of waste into community value. Finger Lakes Reuse has received numerous awards, including Nonprofit of the Year Award from the Tompkins County Chamber of Commerce and the Environmental Champion Award from the USEPA. Diane has been working in waste reduction through reuse since 2001 and enjoys taking a collaborative approach to help design and activate a more comprehensive, sustainable, and just materials management system. The ultimate goal is for all reusable and repairable materials to remain circulating in local economies, providing opportunities for skill building, empowerment, and community connection in the process. So with that, Diane Cohen.
Great. Thank you, Josh. And I assume you guys can hear me. Great. And yeah, Luke, that was inspiring what you're doing. It's a heavy lift. I feel like I've now gotten to know yet another soulmate, as probably many of this people on this call are. And just want to say a shout out, thank you to Susie Fromer again, who's such a global champion for reuse right here in New York State's Hudson Valley. And so thank you. I'm really thrilled to be a part of this today. I've got in our slide title that, the repair economy is a phrase, and I think we all understand that the economy doesn't accurately support the actual value of what repair is. It's cheaper to, get a new one, and that's like such a structural problem with how our economy works. And so I'll circle back to, why I think an economic argument is so important for the work that we're doing. And, Luke, anytime I'd be happy to, share information or with anybody about what we're doing and what those impacts are to help kind of leverage more investment and support for the work that we're doing. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here today. Finger Lakes Reuse is we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We were founded in 2007 and we opened our first reuse center. We now operate two, 5 miles apart in a county of about 100,000 people. We're, city of Ithaca, Cornell University is here. We also have Ithaca College. So of our 100,000 county member residents, we have 30,000 college students within that number. And then we're surrounded by other rural counties. So we've been operating since 2008, so this is our 18th year of operation. We started by saying Ithaca is a place that has a lot of nonprofits, and people are like, oh, why do we need another nonprofit? And I said, we said we're going to take a business approach to this solution. We're going to really try to figure out how to maximize the business revenues to help drive the growth, and that's exactly what we've done. And we based our mission statement on the triple bottom line that's been, picked up by B corporations, people, planet, and profit. So our mission is to enhance community, economy, and environment through reuse. We were founded to reduce waste, but we realized that there's other impacts. We also realized that our mission statement is very broad. What does that mean to enhance community or enhance economy? So we had some clear founding goals, which I'm really proud of the fact that even though we've grown tremendously, we haven't drifted from our mission or from our founding goals. We're still achieving those every day, reducing waste, relieving poverty, and teaching skills through reuse activities. And a few years after we got out of the gate, our board got together with our leadership team, and we came up with a vision statement of a just, resilient, and waste-free world that values both people and resources. We really realized in year one, actually, I remember having an epiphany in our first year, walking through our storefront, and I was like, it's not about the stuff, it's about the people. And so it really shifted my thinking very early on about how do we make this a more quality experience for any of the people that are participating, and from the workers to the material donors to the customers to anybody who's participating in the act of reuse. And as you know, repair is in there, and there's so much that can be shared. So we're fairly unique in that we were formed on request of our county, who put a reuse center, just in broad terms, not really very clearly defined, in there. At the time, in New York State, solid waste management plans were 20 years old. They're now 10 years here. But they put it in the plan, and they were able to justify putting some funding toward that. And it was just it was a $20,000 seed money grant. At the time, I was managing an architectural salvage program, which was also partially funded by our county. And I was reporting that I was seeing a lot more material than the 11,000 square foot warehouse that we had could manage. And I was seeing a greater variety of materials. We were focused on architectural salvage and building materials. I did that from 2001 to 2008. But in 2005, I said, I'm seeing a lot more. And they said, if only we had a reuse center, which I had been hearing the county kind of bemoaning for 5 years. And I said, we need to start planning one. And that's what got us onto the path of the next 2.5 years. We got into this planning. The county gave us some seed money. It turned into a $148,000 federal grant to get our deconstruction program going, and some other private foundations that provided the seed money for us to sign a lease and open our doors. We did go, and this is a linked, I think these slides will be shared, and this is a linked slide, but it's also on our website, what we call a pre-business plan summary, where we kind of went around and talked to a whole bunch of stakeholders. And really, when you distill it all, the main thing was, what would motivate you to donate? It has to be convenient. And what would motivate you to purchase? Well, it has to be affordable. So we kind of based all of our strategies on those two things. We opened up 7 days a week. We try to position our prices to be less than 50% of what you can get them for new. Of course, many of the items we sell you can't get anywhere anymore, and that's a whole subjective matter. But we started focused on three main materials: building materials, furniture, and housewares. We doubled in size in 2010 and moved into the storefront next door. We started with 7,000 square feet. And then we got into computers and electronics. And then when we purchased our second location that was 5 miles away in 2015, we added books, clothes, and shoes, because we were getting technical assistance from the Cascade Alliance and a St. Vincent de Paul in Eugene, Oregon, that has 14 thrift stores in and around the city of Eugene, and there's 9 Goodwills in that market as well. So they were saying there's a lot more room, and if you're really trying to reduce waste, here's some technical assistance. So that's been a really great partnership. Meanwhile, as we're trying to build this, people are consuming more than ever. So this the global economy's consumed the same amount of resources in the last 6 years as it did in the entire 20th century is, like really kind of a daunting stat. And that came from an Amazon 2023 sustainability report. And the good news is in New York State, we've been kind of working with our New York State partners and saying, hey, you've spent so much on recycling efforts, but how much have you spent on reuse infrastructure? And so they've done a study now that says 84% of what's in our municipal solid waste is reusable or recoverable. And I know municipal solid waste doesn't include construction and demolition waste, but that's like yet another challenge, but I would argue it's a major economic opportunity. From a community standpoint, we just decided, we could be competing or we could be collaborating. So in our business plan, we did a collaborative analysis. Who could we work with to achieve our goals? Who could we kind of build on what people are doing? So we've been doing that for many, many years, since 2005. For 20 years, we've been saying, who can we partner with? So by the time that, I don't know, 10th Ithacan sent me the New York Times article that talked about repair cafes, and there was a little box that talked about Seattle had a repair cafe and New York City had a fixers collective that they had started. We decided, okay, the community wants this. We didn't really have the resources. I think this was in 2012. We sent out a survey to our community and said, who's interested in helping with repair? Do you have things that you need to be, need help repairing, or do you have skills to help repair? And I was blown away that well over half, it was, I think, close to 70% of the respondents, and we got a very, very strong response. I don't know, maybe 150 people in the first couple of weeks of putting the survey out. More than half, well over half said, I have skills I'd like to share. It was really interesting to hear that from the community. And so we just started setting aside some tools, and we started not knowing, we didn't ever get into the Repair Cafe franchise model, but our volunteers said, we want to do this. We think every week is going to be important. Finger Lakes Reuse gave the space inside our reuse center in the storefront so shoppers could see. We pushed some furniture out of the way every Saturday afternoon, and the fixers actually purchased a really nice workbench that had gotten donated to us. They put it on wheels so they could wheel it out. And we set aside a bunch of tools, and they were off and running. And that's been going every week since 2013, barring a couple of years post-COVID when, a lot of our fixers are retirement age and vulnerable populations. But it's going again. It's really it's a robust program. We're really excited about it. It's very similar to repair cafes, but one of the things that I learned from you, Susie, is that one of the challenges of repair is the liability insurance. If you're moving around from different facilities, that's really a headache. For us, that's something that's already covered in under our umbrella. We're already handling these materials, so it's not a concern. So what we're doing is we're providing space. We also partner with places like the Ithaca Rotary Club. We now donate 2 pallets of material to them a week. They bring in volunteers, and we give them a small portion of the anticipated proceeds. They've helped us put another 100 pallets a year onto the floor that we would not have had the capacity to process. And it's become their largest fundraiser. So I'm happy to talk more about that at some point with anyone who's interested. And then we've worked with other community programs like the Stuffy Wellness Center, which is a church group that's saved 2,700 stuffed animals by cleaning them and redistributing them. We partner with over 40 human service organizations. We've had over 800 volunteers last year, so we stay pretty busy. On the economic side, last year between our 2 reuse centers, we did over $2.5 million in sales revenue. If we turned that into tonnage and said what would that have cost to have thrown away, that would have been $220,000 that we've saved. But we turned that cost into $2.5 million. We're also collecting sales tax. So we collected $200,000 worth of sales tax, half of which goes to county and local municipalities. So reminding them of that when we're asking for support is something that definitely want keep talking about. We now have 90 employees. We started with 7. Actually, we have 95. This in 2025, end of 2025, we had 90. And then these two charts, which are really too small to read. The top right one is our revenues. The green line is our earned revenues through sales and services, through our businesses. And the gold line down below is grants, government contracts, and philanthropic donations. You can see then that the lower right chart is over the years since we opened in 2008, our gross revenues and our gross expenses. And you can see there's years when we've had small losses. There's years where we've had tiny surpluses. We've been really close to the edge all these years. We had some more serious losses the last 3 years, but we were able to close the gap in 2025. And in 2026, you can see in the chart up above, we're planning to fundraise more to try to drive this growth. We're still trying to explore where's the business balance at this scale. And the Cornell business students let me know that it's undercapitalized growth where we're experiencing some of the cash challenges, and yet we're still continuing to build and demonstrate what's possible. Our biggest business problem is that we've successfully engaged the public, through that convenience strategy. Over the last decade, our material donation drop-offs have increased 40% a year for 10 years. 40% a year over and over. And now we're at 61,000 donations is what we received in 2025. Almost 200 cars or U-Hauls or pickup trucks with trailers or whatever a day. We're selling about 900,000 items a year. I think I have another slide on that. But we've only been able to, with all that increase in material volume, we've only been able to increase our facility capacity 10%. We're about to take another growth step right now. We have been able, I'm pretty proud of the fact that our retail and business revenues have increased an average of 20% year over year. And that's pretty healthy considering how the economy, we had COVID, we had all sorts of issues, but we're still staying strong and still growing. And we've been able to control our greatest expense, which is payroll, keeping that at 16%. But there's been other expenses that are growing more rapidly as the economy continues to change. So we continue in a financially strained environment as we continue to try to challenge this or face these challenges. So here's, Ithaca Fixers Collective. Every single Saturday, we've got a big sign. This is one of our longtime fixers. She's been showing up for years. She always has, when we're like, this is Susanna, when in the first year when I would attend every week, we'd say, does anybody have a bobby pin or this type of wrench? And she would have it in her pocket. It was kind of magical. It was a lot of fun. Really dedicated volunteers who show up in the public. It's a buzzing beehive every single Saturday afternoon. Before COVID, I was really excited about this, and we have not been able to reconstitute it yet post-COVID, but we did 2 what we called Kids Fix events, and I just love this multi-generational transferring of skill sets, and I love the engagement that's happening here. And it was super popular both times we did it. A lot of fun, and I think there's a lot more we could do with this. I really think that reuse can actually help support and increase repair, in partnership. And what we've gotten some funding to help build this technical assistance program, which right now is really mostly a website. But we also are starting to build up capacity to provide technical assistance. Right now, we can't afford to do it for free, but we are, interested. If there are communities who are interested in paying, would love to talk about it. But we do have an online business plan template. It's at template.ithacareuse.org. And you can check that out, how to start a nonprofit. It's somewhat framed for a New York State nonprofit, but many of the lessons learned are applicable anywhere in the country. Our hope is that we are going to build out kind of a network of what we're calling hubs, which don't really exist yet, large scale, manufacturing scale. What we have demonstrated is there is so much more material than anyone really realized. And at the rate of consumption, there's going to be even more. So we need to build up infrastructure for this to properly be collected, sorted, packaged for market, whatever that looks like, assessed for pricing and return to market. And so, this is kind of just a conceptual sketch. But, right now we have, originally Tompkins County wanted a reuse center. We quickly demonstrated that one wasn't enough. We opened a second one, became even more overwhelmed by materials. So we've been looking at what does this kind of exchange and network look like. And as there are numerous companies out there building apps to kind of house an inventory, I think there could be ways to kind of show the reusable marketplace kind of through a regional network. So it really always interested in talking about that. The hubs, we've really successfully combined workforce development and job training with the work that we're doing. And we have a lot of buy-in from our workforce development community. One of the things I'm most proud of is that they really respect the job training program we've had for the last 10 plus years and want to help us do more. They see that we're not only helping develop the workforce, we're helping engage a workforce that might not see themselves in the trades or even in a job at all. But if we're providing this more kind of gentle entry, supportive working environment, helping develop both soft skills, and then we can, offer a huge range of experiences. From if people are into computers, we can, get them into the technology track. If they're into building materials, we can, show them how to use PPE and, personal protective equipment, safety practices, tool management, through our deconstruction program that we also have going. And then there's also customer service and leadership skills that can be built. So there's a huge array of things that can happen in the workforce community. And what we're pitching is that these hubs, where these greater scale sorting facilities and assessment facilities and preparing for local and regional markets, could really help put people to work and help them stabilize, build confidence, and go on to other careers. And so, I'll stop there, open it up for any questions. And we couldn't do this without many, many, many partners. These are some of the partners who have helped us either through technical assistance or significant funding, but we've had, hundreds, probably pushing, in the 1,000 partner level, and, many thousands of community members to help us with this. So anyway, thank you for your time and attention, and I'm really looking forward to any questions you may have.
Wow, Diane, amazing. The scale is so cool for me to see. This is the direction that my organization is trying to go, and I think a lot of people are trying to. So that, to see the scale that you're working at and the scale that you want to move to is truly inspiring. Thank you for that amazing work and that amazing presentation. We don't have a ton of time, so I'll jump into some questions that I saw. One was, what is the biggest contributor that you see to the increased donations that you've been seeing year over year?
I think our increased visibility. My experience has been it's about community perception. So one of the things, when we bought a second reuse center, we had this big, big to some people, 17,000 square feet, and I knew it was too small. But they saw this big empty building, and so we actually got 3 phone calls from Cornell University. They were redoing their vet school and had a huge, huge, huge volume of material. An attorney's office that had 4 floors of, high quality furniture. They were moving, and they, of course, were buying all new furniture for their move. And then I forget what the third one was, but it would have filled up our empty 17,000 square foot building. We had just put the word out, and I had to find storage space before we opened the doors for our second location. So I think the consumption is up for sure. I think so a Goodwill opened in our market last April, and we still have experienced record sales. They're not 40%, they're only 3% over the last year. We're like, thank you. It's just so crazy. But I think we've built a lot of trust with the community. They see that we've had some of the same employees for many, many years. They see the range of things we're trying to do and the benefits and the volume. So I think we built some trust. We're very community based. We're very community connected. So I think it's a combination of things: perception, trust, and support for our mission, and consumption. Of course, there's just more stuff than ever.
So yeah, what's happening in society, but then how you're reacting to that. I think it's also cool that this is something that we often talk about in my organizations. How do we keep that community sense as we grow with more employees and more more impact and bigger partners and expand, but keep true to your mission and your values?
It's a raging debate in our organization right now.
Yeah.
I think I definitely have conversations with people and partners who think that, that Finger Lakes Reuse is just has a growth strategy, and really we're reacting. We're the end of the pipe operation. We can't control what's in the pipe. We're just trying to manage what's coming at us. It's been very passive and just trying to build the right infrastructure to manage what's being offered to us. I think one thing we made we're called Finger Lakes Reuse. We're in the Finger Lakes region. That probably umbrellas 7 or 8 counties, but we've intentionally kept our footprint within our county because we're not even close to the bottom of the pile yet here. We've been working on engaging Cornell University because they're probably one of the largest contributors to the material volume. But in terms of, we definitely have hired employees, like especially since COVID and as we've really grown, I've noticed a big difference where people think that they've gotten hired at a big corporation, and we're still a very small nonprofit organization from our administrative side, and we're very heavily strained right now as we're trying to figure this out. So I think the future should be a network where, like, we don't want to own and operate all the reuse, but we see that there's a whole reuse economy that needs to be better valued. I mean, we have Salvation Army and Goodwills, and we welcome them. Goodwill invited us to their ribbon cutting. We're happy to be partnering in this space together. And I think, figuring out a way to have a network, getting state and local government understanding the economic opportunity for this is really important. And my dream would be for Finger Lakes Reuse to actually shrink and have technical expertise, ability to umbrella and support, smaller rural village outlets, or more of a kind of constellation of places where people could either drop off their stuff or buy stuff, and perhaps calve off the actual reuse centers themselves as B corporations, and then just be part of a kind of a network. I think that would actually help. I think it would reduce theft if people are feeling like the reuse center that they're working in isn't part of this, giant monopoly, which is some of the perception that we manage. But instead, they know that if their place performs well, they all benefit, and it will feel like more of a team environment. So it's something we just did a strategic plan last year, and that's something that we're going to explore over the next couple of years to see how could we restructure as an organization so that some of these components could be more effectively focused on, because we're doing many, many things, and it's with too small of an administrative core.
It's a great answer, and what I really appreciate is that it's an egoless answer. That there is, I feel like there's the sense to just keep on expanding and own everything, but that's not the spirit of these kind of things. We got to share that power, or else we're going to be doing everything ourselves, and it's going to fall apart. And we're not going to be as connected to the specific community we're in, right? And so you would know that Finger Lakes community, it sounds like, and what they need. There are several other questions, and I don't think we're going to get time to, though. Maybe we'll just cancel everything else and have Diane and Luke run the rest of this, because I could listen to you all day. This is it. I'm going to probably call you all on the side and have some conversations. It's been brilliant. We do have a couple more minutes, and sorry for the folks I didn't get to your questions. If Diane and Luke see those and have answers in the chat, or anybody else does, put those in. But I did just want to give, first I'll go to Luke and then I'll go to Diane. Just a couple minutes in closing, anything that is exciting that's coming up, anything you want to plug, or anything, just a last thought that you want to share with everyone.
I'll start. I put in the chat, Luke, while you were talking, and I heard all the questions. For people who are interested in building materials and deconstruction, there's a Build Reuse is a national organization focused on building materials reuse. They have a conference coming up in Phoenix in November, so I'm putting that link in the chat right now.
Excellent. Thank you, Diane. Luke?
Yeah, I would second that. Yeah, no, very exciting. I think that was a fantastic presentation, Diane. And I think, yeah, Josh, you hit the nail on the head. Like, finding ways for each organization to serve their community best, and just to react, to what's needed. That's kind of what we're doing with the farm tool library. I don't know anything about farms or farm tools, But a need came to us, and small farmers came to us, and they were like, "Hey, we need these tools," and we found donors, and we're making it happen. So I think that was really cool to hear about, just like serving each community exactly where they're at.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I'm going to give folks just a few minutes back so we don't go over, because I know they're pretty tight. So thank you all very much. I will just, from my personal experience, share that like sharing these programs under one roof has been working for us. We've been seeing it working. I mean, Diane and Luke are doing it extremely well. And so that there's resources to create more efficiencies by having these programs together. And one thing I heard from Luke and Diane that we're doing as well is not having to do everything yourself. So what programs do you want to own that make sense to be under that one literal roof? And then what's under the more spiritual or collective reuse roof that that we can still not have to do ourselves and not take it on. So with that,
philosophical, right? That's the
yes, right.
Yeah.
The philosophical roof. Yeah.
I just wanted to housekeeping notes here. If this is your first day with us, or if your brain was empty after yesterday, like mine was, I'll put the link into the chat for the return to the lobby, and that way you guys can choose your next adventure. We do have some overlap in some of the sessions that are breakouts. So jump in and out. If you have any issues or questions, definitely you can put things into the lobby chat, or reach out to me directly, Amanda. There might be two of me, but you can message me both or something in the lobby area. But yeah, thank you. Just want to make sure to mention that.
Great. Thanks once again to Luke and Diane. You all are incredible. Keep it up. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
I'm gonna work with Cami too, just for some notes to y'all. There's probably several sessions where we didn't get to answer all of the questions that were put into chats and things. So I'll work with Cami to make like a list and see if we can do a post summit Q&A, like FAQ. Q&A, well, you know what I mean, like answers to the questions. So if you guys had more to share or had other resources, this is one of my favorite things about this event is like the convening, obviously, of shared experiences, but also the resource synergy that can happen from that too. So we'll try to, hive mind, that's a good word, or mycelium, right, Josh? That's what we always come back to, that larger entity. So all right, we'll go ahead and end this session so folks can be booted back to the lobby, but feel free to stick around and jump into the next one.